I'm delighted today to host an Equal Everywhere conversation about representation in media and government, in Hollywood, and in life. Important recent reports from the UK and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation confirm, respectively, that gender stereotypical imagery can lead to unequal gender outcomes, that women's priorities and voices are not included in media coverage. Meanwhile, women's lagging political participation and prioritization greatly undermine our hopes for equality. Today, we have some phenomenal experts to address these challenges and what can be done. I'm so pleased to be joined by Joe and Jen and another Michelle for this conversation. Joe, I'm going to start with you first. What can be done about these challenges?
Look, I really believe that in every workforce, we need to empower employees to bring them their true selves to work and ensure that we're elevating diverse voices and perspectives. It's something I'm super proud of in terms of leading a team that can actually deliver diverse stories and ensure that we pride ourselves on ensuring that we are delivering differentiated and diverse voices. Something that we really focus on, particularly in the part of the business that I run, is ensuring that we have diverse representation in the newsroom, given that we're reaching such a great big audience, and we want to make sure that we have different viewpoints.
Thank you for that. And Michelle, how about for you?
Yeah, so I think, the way we think about it is, I think shifting the narrative is all about changing who's telling the story, right? And so, I think at Crocs, we've been very intentional about representation. Several years ago, we kicked off a campaign, which has really become our brand platform, which is called Come As You Are, or Kaya for short. And Kaya is all about inclusivity. It was an invitation several years ago to our consumers to really embrace their individuality. The idea was you didn't have to look a specific way to belong to our brand, to join our brand, right? We wanted kind of all kinds to come to Crocs. And, Crocs was also used to being kind of the underdog or the outsider a little bit in the fashion space, in the footwear space. So we kind of knew what it meant to not quite fit in. So what's really been exciting for me to see is that Kaya has really become very core to our internal values. So we believe that truly being an authentic brand, you have to start from the inside and it goes out. So what's really exciting about Crocs now is that when I first joined the company 7 years ago, I was the only female on the leadership team. We now have over 50% of our leadership team are females. I'm the brand president, so I'm female. We have a female CFO, a female COO. We have a female CMO. We have a head of product that's female, a head of the Americas region is female. So I really think that representation starts inside an organization, and you really have to see and understand and look and be intentional about who's making the decisions, right? And that's where I think real change comes from.
Michelle, I love that idea of taking exclusion and turning it into a source of power and changing the dynamics of that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jen, you've led in this area in several ways, including at Time's Up, and now you're working on women's leadership, inclusion, prioritization as co-chair of the White House Council on Gender Policy. What's your point of view on this challenge and what we can do about it?
I really want to echo what both Michelle and Joe have already said about the importance of who's at the table, who's in the room. At Time's Up, really our one of our mantras, sort of the genesis of our work, is that it matters who tells the stories, because that is who determines what stories are told. And that's how you get true diversity in Hollywood. But as you already pointed out, the narratives that come out of Hollywood or advertising or the media are the narratives that get deeply embedded into our society. And for too long, those narratives have been limited. And I think the excitement of the last several years, both in the private sector and in government and in entertainment and media, has been that we're really bringing diversity, inclusion, equity to those stories. And therefore, that's step one to changing those really deeply embedded gender norms.
And Jen, for some of our audiences who are learning more about gender equality, who are new to gender equality, who want to know why this matters, why is it important that the new administration, that governments everywhere prioritize the equal rights of girls and women?
Well, sadly, I think the reason is because there is nowhere in the world where women and girls are truly equal. So that is our great challenge. And I think, there's a moment that we're in, sadly, the moment that has been thrust upon us because of COVID, where maybe we're at a pivot point where people can really see literally the inequality that in some cases has really remained invisible is really visible. And that's in part because we are seeing, issues that have long existed. Generations of women and girls can tell you that they've experienced gender-based violence in their homes, in their communities, at work, that women have really borne a disproportionate share of the caregiving and unpaid work. And we're seeing it now. I mean, we're literally all in our homes, or still many of us are still in our homes. And so you can see you can see the essential work that caregivers, childcare providers, home health aides, grocery workers are doing, many of whom are women, many of whom are women of color, many of whom are low paid. And sort of in stark relief, we are seeing this. And we're at a pivot point where we risk embedding those gender norms, but we also sort of have the promise of, now that we see them, to change them.
Jen, I just wanted to add what you just said then about the, what's been going on through the pandemic. I've been reading some stats, and I heard that, women are, 1.5 times more likely to downshift their careers as a result of the pandemic. And I think it's exactly what you just said, which is, women have the complications, caregiver in the home, making all these decisions. And one thing that may be easy to quickly shift on is, hey, I might just need to step down or step out of my career. And I think that that's where it's really important to tell those stories and ensure that we're, giving the support and showing ways to take action to be able to stay in the community.
I think that's exactly right. And I think it relates also to the question you raised earlier about, the importance of inclusion, because again, one of the reasons I'm excited to co-chair this Gender Policy Council in the Biden administration is because we will have a seat at the table to raise these issues. And it's a commitment, really across this new administration to pay attention. And to embed an analysis and an understanding of the issues that are facing women and girls in the US, but really around the world.
Well, exactly. And we're all grateful for that. Michelle, your thoughts on this as well, where you sit and with other women about what progress you see, what remains to be done?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think that has actually been, there's always silver linings, right, in the middle of these sort of difficult times. And I think what's been interesting from my perspective is that you've seen people in the workspace in a much more holistic way, right? So, I think probably we've all been on Zoom calls, right, where someone's kid runs in, or there's an emergency, or, right, because the kids don't care. Mom's on the screen, who cares, right? They just want what they want and they rush in. Or I've seen, people, husbands, in the background walking around, and, you see real life, you see people in the kitchens. And I think that, in the workspace, there can be a tendency to sort of feel like you can only bring one part of yourself to work. And I think actually this has made, in the workspace, it feel, I think it's made everyone a bit more empathetic, because you see you see people's whole worlds and their whole selves and whole lives kind of on screen. And you have to remember, oh yeah, right, that person has a 1-year-old in the house, right? That person's, a single mom. That person's juggling a lot of things. They've got elderly people in their home. Like, everyone's got their stories behind what they kind of do in their workspace. And I feel like that's come through. We've seen kind of people show up in a more holistic way. And I think that brings more empathy when we remember.
Well, exactly. And that's a really good point about including people and representing people as they actually live. I mean, this The challenge of women losing jobs in the US workforce is not a small problem. It's an emergency. You know, a third of workers in the United States are parents of minor age children. So we have to show that CEOs are moms and chief executives of all kinds are moms and workers are moms, and that they deserve equal opportunity in our economy. So I want to thank you all so much for this rich conversation that we've had today. I could keep talking to you for the rest of the day about these issues, but I'm grateful to you for sharing your thoughts about how we get to equal everywhere. Thank you.